Hello, everyone, and welcome to our channel. If you've been following Layton Ferris and Aranda Volin's interstellar adventure, you know the stakes couldn't be higher. Our story's most thrilling twist so far involves Aranda discovering a powerful empathic bond with Layton, one that might reshape the future of both human and Kett civilizations. Imagine standing before four of the galaxy's greatest leaders, realizing your relationship holds the key to unprecedented healing, alliance building, or even military power. Curious about how it all ends? Stick around and experience the full story to see whether they embrace this mysterious bond for good or risk it falling into the wrong hands. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to show your support and stay updated on more incredible stories. Your comments matter to us. Tell us what you think about Layton and Aranda's bond, and feel free to share where you're listening from. We can't wait to hear your opinions. Layton Ferris had stepped onto over a dozen alien worlds throughout his adventurous career, but the research outpost on Ketran Prime instantly struck him as different. Located on the periphery of consortium space, it was a gleaming testament to the innovative spirit that united many advanced civilizations. The entire facility shimmered with that curious blend of form and function that Aranda Volin's people, the Kett, were renowned for. Tall, arching corridors wove seamlessly into circular turrets, each constructed of materials that gleamed with traces of gold and violet under the setting sun. Layton was here on a relatively routine assignment, or so the Earth Diplomatic Corps had told him. As a specialist in mechanical engineering and ex-military tech, he was tasked with evaluating and repairing the outpost's malfunctioning atmospheric processors. Yet from the moment the human transport settled onto the unusual hexagonal landing pad, he could feel that something more significant than a basic repair job awaited him. Clutching his gear bag against his side, he surveyed the bright bustle on the tarmac. Kett researchers, technicians, and administrative staff hurried about, some pushing floating carts loaded with scanning devices and others examining new shipments of equipment. Their skin ranged in shades of turquoise and azure, each possessing an almost cosmic pattern beneath the surface, reminiscent of faint starlight caught under glass. A small group of them gathered around Layton's ship, eyes wide with curiosity. Humanity's entry into the galactic scene was still relatively fresh. Barely 2 decades had passed since Earth's official induction into the consortium. Even so, humans had quickly earned a reputation for boundless adaptability and a knack for solving problems that had stumped other species for years. "Mr. Ferris," a melodic voice called out, slicing through the murmur of activity on the landing pad. A single figure stepped forward. Her skin was a deep, vivid indigo that seemed to absorb the planet's sunset hues, patterns on her forearms glinting every time she moved. Layton recognized her immediately from the mission briefs. Aranda Volin, designated research coordinator for the outpost. She wore a form-fitting black and charcoal outfit that simultaneously seemed practical and elegantly minimal, offering freedom of movement and subtly accentuating her athletic frame. He shifted his duffel bag to his other shoulder and extended a hand. "I guess you've got the right guy. Layton Ferris, mechanical specialist out of Earth sector. Good to finally meet you." The corners of Aranda's lips quirked upward. Kett expressions were similar to humans, but the slight tilt of her head gave away her cautious curiosity. "I'm Aranda Volin," she said, placing her palm briefly against his in greeting. Her touch was cool compared to Layton's warm skin, something he'd heard was typical of her species. "I appreciate your punctuality. We've been having trouble with our atmospheric and water reclamation systems, as I'm sure your superiors have informed you. This outpost is vital to the Kett research initiative, and any prolonged downtime puts us all at risk." Layton found his gaze lingering on Aranda's subtle, star-like skin patterns. "I'm more than ready to get my hands dirty," he replied with a friendly grin. "But fair warning, I have a tendency to poke around beyond the official scope. I like to make sure systems play nicely together, even if that means diving into a problem that wasn't on the initial list." Aranda's bright, teal-flecked eyes glowed with approval. "That's exactly why the Earth Diplomatic Corps recommended you, Mr. Ferris. We Kett have read about your unpredictability. We hope it might lead to solutions we haven't even considered." Layton chuckled, glancing around the shimmering outpost. "Unpredictability is one of humanity's specialties. Show me the way, Coordinator Volin, and let's see if we can help you keep this place running." Aranda guided Layton through an intricately lit corridor, the architecture reflecting the unique synergy of Kett engineering. Various doorways led into labs devoted to xenobiology, atmospheric composition, and cultural studies. The presence of Earth-like furnishings, chairs, consoles with bilingual interfaces, and even rest stations proportioned for human physiques, testified to how closely the Kett had collaborated with the humans over the past few years. "Your quarters are just up ahead," Aranda said, pausing by a panel that recognized her palm signature. The doors slid open silently, revealing a surprisingly spacious unit that included a comfortable bed, a small work desk, and an adjustable lighting system. "We hope it meets your standards. It's close to atmospheric norms for Earth, though we maintain slightly lower humidity here on Ketran Prime." Layton nodded appreciatively, stepping inside to get a feel for the place. "It's better than some of the bunks I've had off-world," he admitted. "I'll manage just fine." When he turned around, she was waiting for him in the hall, her expression thoughtful. "I'll give you a tour of our mechanical bay whenever you're ready," she offered. "But before that, there's a communal dining hall down the corridor. Our midday meal is due soon if you'd like to eat." Her head tilted, curiosity shining in her eyes. "I've often read about the human fondness for mealtime gatherings. Apparently, it's a cornerstone of your social customs." He let out a laugh. "It's a big part of our culture, all right. We gather around a table, share stories, jokes, sometimes arguments, but usually end up bonding. Food and conversation seem to go hand in hand with us." They walked side by side to the dining area, which was laid out to accommodate numerous species. Some seats featured protrusions or recesses suitable for tails or extra limbs, though the Kett looked humanoid enough to be fairly compatible with most Earth designs. The food dispensers were advanced, scanning an individual's biology through subtle sensors and recommending meals that match nutritional needs. Layton was directed to a selection of items reminiscent of tangy fruits in soft protein-based pastes. He made a careful, if slightly wary, selection. After he settled into a seat, Aranda joined him with her own tray. The Kett cuisine she carried had an elegant presentation, iridescent morsels that, to human eyes, looked somewhere between shellfish and strange mushrooms. Layton took a tentative bite of his recommended meal and found it pleasantly tangy, like a combination of lemon zest and subtle spice. Aranda studied his reaction with amusement. "You don't find it too odd?" He shook his head thoughtfully. "It's different, sure, but not in a bad way. Definitely better than some MRE packs from my military days." Her expression brightened with interest. "You were military then?" "Forgive me if that's too personal. The Earth Diplomatic Corps merely stated you had a background in mechanical and environmental engineering." "I served in the Earth Expeditionary Forces for 8 years, Layton confirmed. "Specialized in hostile environment vehicle maintenance, forward operations, that sort of thing. Turned out I was decent at patching up everything from tanks to life support systems. Eventually, I moved into civilian work." Aranda's lips curved, revealing faintly pointed teeth that sparkled under the bright overhead lighting. "That explains your confidence. It's said that humans adapt quickly, especially those with military training. We Kett admire that." Setting his utensil aside, Layton leaned forward. "You said you've read about us, which means you've looked into some of our cultural quirks, right?" Aranda pressed her palm lightly to the table, recalling details with a slight flush to her indigo skin. "Your historical records and anthropological data fascinate me. In truth, human mating habits, in particular, have drawn attention among my colleagues." She glanced away before catching his gaze directly. "Your kind is rumored to eat your mates." Layton nearly choked on his drink. "Eat our mates?" he repeated, managing to laugh after clearing his throat. "That's not quite how I'd phrase it, but I get the confusion." Aranda studied him with a mixture of curiosity and relief. "You do? Because some Kett researchers have been quite insistent. They mention certain Earth colloquialisms about devouring and consuming that describe acts of intimacy." "Well," Layton said, lowering his voice conspiratorially, "we do joke about eating our partners, often referring to oral pleasure, but it's a metaphor. We certainly don't consume our loved ones in any lethal or literal sense." Aranda's indigo cheeks darkened, and her large eyes widened. "So it's purely a pleasurable interaction," he grinned. "Purely." Later that evening, Layton found himself alone in the dimly lit mechanical bay, a sprawl of intricate machinery laid out before him. He'd begun preliminary diagnostics on the atmospheric processors, noting they'd been designed to handle typical Kett homeworld conditions. Kettran Prime, however, contained airborne minerals that gradually clogged filtration membranes and led to subtle but persistent corrosion of key components. Everything so far seemed fixable, albeit with a fair amount of modification. Despite being engrossed in the repairs, Layton's thoughts periodically drifted to Aranda. Her inquisitive, forthright nature tugged at his mind. Every time he pictured the way she'd blushed when he explained the Earth euphemism about eating, he felt a gentle warmth blossom in his chest. It was unwise, he told himself, to mix professional duties with personal intrigue, especially on an alien outpost under watchful eyes. Yet something about her directness, her curiosity, and the subtle glow beneath her skin made her impossible to ignore. A quiet chiming sound drew his attention. Aranda's figure appeared at the entrance to the bay, her silhouette outlined by the corridor's soft bluish light. "Hard at work?" she asked, stepping carefully past scattered tools and inactive drones. "Trying to be," Layton replied, cutting power to a console so he could stand and face her. "Didn't expect company." Her posture radiated controlled excitement. "I was curious about your progress, but honestly, I also wanted to follow up on our conversation from earlier." She paused, eyes moving across the various half-disassembled components. "I see you're already investigating more than just the designated filtration segments." He shrugged, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Once you've fixed enough machines in war zones, you learn how interconnected systems can be. A malfunction in the water reclamation unit might be related to a corroded subcircuit in the atmospheric controls. It helps to see the bigger picture." Aranda nodded as though verifying a mental note. Then, stepping a bit closer, she spoke in a lower tone. "Earlier, you clarified how humans might consume their partners in a purely pleasurable way. I should admit, our own species has certain, specialized points of contact during intimacy. Perhaps not the same as yours, but we have heightened sensitivity in areas that humans might not expect." Heat flushed Layton's cheeks as he recalled the conversation in the dining hall. The reminder of that intimate subject made the carefully calibrated environment of the mechanical bay feel far warmer than before. "You mean you have different erogenous zones?" Aranda's gaze fell upon a slender set of stripes on her forearms that faintly flickered with pulses of azure light. "Here, for instance," she said softly, "and along the back of our shoulders. Many Kett find certain forms of touch almost transcendent in those areas." A moment of electric tension lingered between them, intensifying as Layton became acutely aware of the closeness they now shared. Their conversation was undeniably personal, perhaps too personal, yet neither seemed willing to step back. "I have a few hours of work left," Layton finally said, gently clearing his throat. "But after that, I wouldn't mind talking more." Aranda's lips curved into a small, approving smile. The subtle cosmic patterns along her skin flickered before steadying. "Come to Lab 6 when you're finished. It's after hours, and I'll be reviewing some biological data. We can continue this cultural exchange in a more private setting." The double meaning of her words hung in the air. As she left, Layton tried to focus on the machinery again, but his concentration had shattered. He could sense a strange, excited jitter under his own skin, a reaction that had nothing to do with corroded atmospheric processors. True to her suggestion, Layton wrapped up his remaining tasks as efficiently as possible, then made his way to Lab 6. It was located in a quieter sector of the outpost, accessible through a short corridor lined with glowing botanical specimens behind transparent panels. Each plant displayed vivid coloration, possibly due to Kett environmental engineering. The lights here were subdued with a subtle lull to the gentle humming of distant machinery. He found Aranda waiting amidst a series of monitors that displayed morphological comparisons between Kettran Prime's insectoid fauna and equivalent creatures from her homeworld. She turned as he entered, a slight hesitation coloring her expression. "Did you finish your checks?" "For now," he confirmed, stepping closer. "I'll run a full suite of tests tomorrow, but the atmospheric processors look salvageable. We'll just need stronger filtration membranes and a few minor reconfigurations." "Excellent," she said, her relieved tone morphing swiftly into curiosity. "So, about our conversation, you seemed interested in learning about Kett sensitivities. Perhaps it's best if I try to explain in a more scientific manner." He felt his heart pick up speed. I'm open to learning, especially if it helps me understand your species better. Aranda tapped a console, bringing up a holographic display of Kett neural pathways. The diagram highlighted distinct nerve clusters along the upper arms, shoulders, and the base of the neck. We're not all identical, of course, she explained, but many Kett have heightened sensitivity in these zones. Touch or gentle pressure can induce strong physiological and emotional responses. Fascinated, Layton observed the swirling lines on the display. Humans can be sensitive around the neck and shoulders too, but not to the degree you're describing, and we certainly don't glow. With an almost teasing arch of her brow, Aranda raised her arm, allowing him to see the delicate stripes near her wrist. That cosmic laced pattern seemed to subtly shift whenever her heartbeat quickened. "May I?" Layton asked, wanting to be sure before he touched her. She nodded, lips parted in a silent exhalation. His fingers brushed against the stripe, discovering that her skin felt simultaneously soft yet taut over a uniquely firm underlying structure. A gentle stroke caused Aranda's luminescence to intensify, and she let out a quick, muted gasp. In that moment, Layton realized just how serious she'd been about these heightened sensitivities. "That's quite something," he murmured, withdrawing his hand to give her space. Aranda exhaled, her cheeks now darkened to a shade closer to violet. I I apologize if that was too forward. Kett research culture is more open about these matters, but I'm aware some human cultures are private about sexual or sensual behavior." Layton took a half step closer, noticing how her posture was caught between professional composure and personal intrigue. "I'm not offended, I'm captivated." She studied his face, searching for any hint of disapproval. When she found none, she placed her palm lightly on the console behind her, as though steadying herself. "There's a reason we Kett are so fascinated by the rumors that humans consume their mates. Our species has always valued the idea of merging physical and emotional connections. If humans practice a form of intimacy that uses the mouth—" "Oral contact," Layton clarified, still somewhat astonished to be discussing it so candidly in a lab. "It's quite common for us, usually considered a gesture of deep trust and pleasure. It can be very intimate." A soft hum in the lab underscored the tension in the air. Aranda's expression wavered between scientific curiosity and personal vulnerability. "I want to understand this better, beyond mere academic interest," she admitted, her voice nearly a whisper. Layton felt an undeniable pull, one that transcended professional courtesy or academic intrigue. But before either of them could speak further, a sudden chime echoed through the lab's intercom. A Kett voice crackled. "Coordinator Volin, your presence is requested in the main command center. Priority alert." She closed her eyes briefly, exhaling. "Duty calls," she said, regret lacing her tone. "I'm sorry, I have to go, but let's continue this later?" Layton nodded, heart still thudding. "Absolutely." The next day, Layton dove deeper into his work, examining the interplay between the outpost water reclamation unit and the atmospheric processors. It turned out that the design flaw went beyond just corrosion in a single system. Catran Prime's airborne particulate matter contained trace compounds that became especially reactive once drawn into the water supply, leading to a slow but steady buildup of microscopic crystals in the circulation lines. Any system attached to that line was vulnerable to grinding, clogging, or eventual breakdown. From the corner of his eye, Layton caught glimpses of other Kett scientists peering in through the workshop's observation panels. Humans were still something of a novelty, and by extension, he had become a point of curiosity. There were whispers about his rumored conversation with Aranda. Apparently, word had spread that the human had confirmed a peculiar truth. Humans eat their mates, but not in the way the Kett might have imagined. Some staff members looked at him with a mix of bemusement and borderline awe. At midday, Dr. Sivik arrived, a tall, lanky Kett xenobiologist with lime green etchings across his cheeks and brow. He had a hurried gait, six-fingered hands nearly trembling in excitement as he approached Layton. "Specialist Ferris, I'm Dr. Sivik. I head our xenobiological research. I've heard there is a point of interest regarding human mating customs, specifically the oral contact phenomenon that might relate to, well, your species' unusual advantage in adaptability." Layton sighed softly, aware that Aranda had possibly shared their conversation with the science team, or they had gleaned enough from secondhand sources. I suppose so. Oral contact or oral sex in human terms is an optional but common practice. However, I'm not sure how it connects to adaptability. Dr. Sevic pushed up the specialized visor that was perched on his elongated nose. It's part of our ongoing study. We suspect certain human bodily fluids, saliva in particular, contain biochemical compounds that might have unusual interactions with Kett physiology. It's purely speculative at this point, but if it proves true, it could have remarkable applications. Remarkable how? Layton asked, narrowing his gaze. A flicker of excitement darted over Sevic's features. In comparative xenobiology, we sometimes see cross-species synergy. For instance, the Tacora gain antiviral immunity from certain Kett antigens. Your human saliva might hold properties that accelerate healing or enhance cell regeneration in Kett tissues. We won't know unless we study it. Layton felt his cheeks grow warm. And how exactly do you plan on studying it? We'd prefer a natural demonstration, but we also have lab settings designed to mimic the biochemical exchange. No need to. Well, we wouldn't force you into direct contact. We can simply request volunteer samples, cross-match them with Kett tissue analogs, that sort of thing. An uncomfortable tension settled in Layton's shoulders. That's interesting. I'll have to think about that. Right now, my priority is fixing these systems. Maybe talk to Coordinator Volin, see what she says. Of course, Doctor, Sevic said, stepping back with a polite bow of his head. My apologies if I've intruded on your workflow, but please do keep in mind that this outpost thrives on the spirit of discovery. Once he was gone, Layton rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a wave of unease. The idea of being some sort of test subject, especially regarding such intimate aspects of human behavior, was unsettling. However, a part of him couldn't help remembering Aranda's fascinated expression. Possibly, there were genuine scientific breakthroughs buried in these cultural differences. He refocused on the water filtration schematic. But no matter how intently he studied the blueprint, a persistent mental image kept invading his thoughts. Aranda's intense azure gaze as he brushed his fingers across her sensitive skin, her slight intake of breath, and her parted lips as she'd admitted she wanted to learn more. By late afternoon, Layton had managed to implement a temporary fix that kept the atmospheric processors running at about 80% efficiency. Satisfied for the moment, he packed up his tools and headed to a vantage point on the outpost's upper level, a place that provided a sweeping overlook of the planet's terrain. From there, the sky was a deep, burnished copper as Catrain Prime's sun began to set, illuminating the mountainous horizon in shades of orange and purple. He wasn't alone for long. Aranda appeared, clad in casual attire that still hinted at the athletic lines of her form. Her skin glowed faintly, an effect that seemed heightened by the twilight. Beautiful, isn't it? She asked, coming to stand beside him at the railing. It is, he replied, though his gaze lingered on her more than the landscape. Honestly, this might be the first time I've paused long enough to appreciate it. A comfortable silence settled over them. In the distance, a network of lights came on across the outpost, walking paths illuminated by the Kett's specialized luminescent crystals. Aranda inhaled, her shoulders rising and falling in a motion that reminded Layton of how humans often side with contentment. We discovered a small glitch in the research logs earlier, she said softly. Someone's been pulling detailed data on xenobiological interactions, particularly cross-species intimacy. Have you spoken to Dr. Sevic? Layton nodded, leaning against the railing. He asked me for bodily fluid samples, saliva specifically. Said it might be beneficial to Kett physiology. I'm not surprised, Aranda said, voice tinged with a hint of embarrassment and amusement. The Kett are a highly inquisitive people. When we latch onto a theory, we pursue it relentlessly. We also don't attach the same taboo to these matters as humans might. In fact, some of my colleagues wanted me to collect additional data from you. Layton couldn't help laughing at the awkward situation. Let me guess, a lab demonstration? She shook her head, crossing her arms in a stance that hinted at her reservations. They can be a bit overzealous, but I also see potential merits. Imagine if there's some undiscovered synergy between human biochemistry and Kett biology, like certain pharmaceuticals that saved Earth from pandemics once we discovered plants in the Amazon. Still, I don't like the idea of turning our personal lives into a spectacle. Layton studied her posture, noticing her arms were tightly folded as though shielding those sensitive stripes. I agree. If there's to be any exploration, it should remain respectful, mutual, not forced. She met his gaze, and for a moment he felt the rest of the world blur away. Mutual, she echoed, stepping closer. I appreciate that. The Kett value genuine connection, too. We have advanced science, yes, but I don't want to reduce any bond to a simple data point. Layton's pulse hammered. She was so close he could see the faint, star-like flecks beneath her skin. Carefully, he placed a hand near her shoulder, just grazing the edges of one shimmering stripe. Aranda inhaled sharply, her eyes fluttering closed for an instant. I want you to know, she whispered. This isn't just curiosity for me. There's something about you, about humans, that fascinates me beyond any academic objective. Heart thrumming, Layton slid his hand down her arm, and she didn't pull away. The contact sent a soft cascade of luminescence across her skin, brighter in the dimming light. Aranda's breath caught. Let's step inside, she managed, nodding toward the corridor that led to private observation decks. It's more secluded, no prying eyes. The moment they were inside, the doors shut with a soft hiss. Aranda turned to him, eyes deep with anticipation. A swirl of conflicting emotions flared in Layton's chest, desire, caution, curiosity, and something that felt suspiciously like awe. Aranda, he began, voice quiet yet resonant in the enclosed space, I need you to tell me if this is all right. She placed a cool fingertip to his lips. It's more than all right, she whispered. Hours later, Layton sat awake on the edge of a softly illuminated couch in Aranda's private quarters, his thoughts spinning. Their night had been a profound convergence of two species, each discovering the other's most vulnerable and intimate truths. Through hushed whispers and tentative touches, they had navigated differences in physical cues, sensory intensity, and cultural norms. The result was a breathtaking tapestry of shared connection that left him equal parts elated and unsettled. Aranda stirred, propping herself up on one elbow. Her skin, which had glowed vibrantly during their intimacies, now exhibited an iridescent sheen that was slightly more pronounced than before. She touched her forearm, frowning curiously. I feel different, she murmured. But not in a bad way, more like an energizing hum coursing through my body. Alarm flickered through Layton. Did something happen? Did we overstep any safety boundary? She shook her head, thoughtful. I've studied Kett physiology all my life. We do sometimes exhibit luminescent patterns post-intimacy, especially when emotional bonds deepen. But this, it's stronger than anything I've documented. And the hum, it's as if my nerve pathways are buzzing with extra current. Layton placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. I'd like to get you checked out by a med scanner, just to be sure there's no adverse effect. Dr. Sevic might jump at the chance to see this. Aranda exhaled softly, her expression torn between scientific curiosity and personal privacy. Part of me wants to keep it just between us, at least for now. But the other part knows this could be a groundbreaking discovery that might help countless people if it's safe. Before either could decide, Aranda's personal communicator chimed. She answered it, and Dr. Sevic's anxious voice filled the room. Coordinator Volin, our monitoring system shows a notable spike in your vitals. Are you experiencing any distress? A flush tinted Aranda's cheeks, which had darkened from deep indigo to a violet shade. She glanced at Layton, who gave her a supportive nod. I'm all right, Dr. Sevic, she said into the communicator. Just an elevated heart rate, possibly from exercise. Sevic didn't sound convinced. You're aware the outpost's automated med scanners detect unusual changes in staff vitals. Your pattern is atypical. We'd appreciate a quick exam. I can be discreet. Aranda sighed, ending the call and rising from the couch. So much for privacy. The outpost monitors everything in real time for safety reasons. I can't exactly hide this. Layton stood, running a hand through his hair. Then let's see him. Better to be transparent, though we can keep some details to ourselves. A few minutes later, in a small med lab lined with glowing diagnostic screens, Dr. Sevic administered a brief scan. Aranda's newly heightened luminescence stood out starkly. Sevic's eyes widened as data filled the display. Coordinator Volin, your cells are exhibiting accelerated regeneration. Your neural pathways show an uptick in synaptic density. I've never seen anything like it. Aranda swallowed hard, sharing a look with Layton. Is it dangerous? Sevik typed a flurry of notes. So far, no. It appears beneficial, like your body is optimizing itself. I must ask, have you had any direct contact with Specialist Ferris's bodily fluids? Perhaps saliva or sweat? Our preliminary theories suggest a cross-species catalyzation. Layton rubbed his temples. This was precisely the conversation he'd worried about. But the science was undeniable. They were in uncharted territory. Aranda finally answered, though her voice trembled with both excitement and trepidation. Yes, doctor. We did share some level of intimacy. Which Sevik's face lit up, a scientist on the verge of a major breakthrough. Remarkable. We must investigate further. This could change everything about how we perceive human-Kett compatibility. Word of Aranda's accelerated regeneration and enhanced neural activity moved through the outpost's scientific community like a solar flare. Although the specifics of her intimate encounter with Layton weren't shared openly, it didn't take long for the rumor mill to piece together the gist. A human-Kett liaison had sparked a physiological phenomenon that seemed to defy established xenobiological principles. Director Orlin, the senior Kett official responsible for overseeing the entire facility, arrived from the central Kett hub to address the matter. A short, formal note summoned both Aranda and Layton to a conference room outfitted with tiered seating and a large holographic display. When they entered, they found not only Director Orlin and Dr. Sevik, but also several dignitaries from both the Kett hierarchy and Earth's Interstellar Relations Bureau, linked in via hologram. Layton felt the weight of their combined gazes, each searching for answers, for scientific wonders, and possibly for advantage. Aranda stood at his side, posture dignified, though her eyes flickered with nerves. Her skin still bore that faint, iridescent glow, a testament to the transformation unfolding within her. Coordinator Volin, began Director Orlin, his voice resonant yet measured, and Specialist Ferris, we appreciate your willingness to join us. I understand there have been developments that may hold significance for both the Kett and humanity. Dr. Sevik stepped forward, his elongated limbs and excited demeanor giving him the air of a scholar on the verge of a eureka moment. He presented a series of images, presumably from Aranda's scans, before and after comparisons of her cellular structure, neural activity charts, and faint luminous patterns along her arms and shoulders. These are unprecedented transformations, Sevik explained. As you can see, in only a short span of time, Coordinator Volin's cells have begun demonstrating heightened regenerative properties. We also see an increase in neural connectivity. Her cognitive tasks show faster synaptic firing. Early test data suggests that a catalytic agent from human saliva, introduced during close contact, triggered these changes. A hushed ripple of reaction spread through the room. One of the Earth officials spoke next, her digital presence flickering on the hologram display. Director Orlin, do we have any reason to suspect potential harm? Could these changes destabilize Coordinator Volin's health or mental state? Aranda lifted her chin. I feel healthy, more energetic than before even. No discomfort, no sign of negative side effects. She paused, glancing at Layton. It's possible that further interactions could deepen these changes, but we can't know without research. The conversation then touched on the possible applications. A couple of the Kett dignitaries seemed intrigued by the notion of a controlled trial, synthesizing or replicating the human compounds that caused Aranda's transformation. One brash voice proposed, if Kett soldiers could gain enhanced regeneration, our defensive capabilities would skyrocket. This discovery might revolutionize planetary security. Layton's gut churned. Military applications? He could practically feel Aranda stiffen beside him. They exchanged a look that spoke volumes. What had begun as a personal, intimate connection was now at risk of being twisted into a weapon. Director Orlin stroked the silver ridges along his temples, deep in thought. We must proceed judiciously. While we cannot ignore the potential benefits for medicine, agriculture, or even defense, we also cannot disregard the ethical implications. We won't force any protocol that violates personal autonomy or mutual respect. Layton exhaled, relief coiled with caution. This was a complex road, one filled with possible breakthroughs and possible abuses. In the days that followed, the outpost buzzed with renewed purpose. Lab teams worked around the clock, some focusing on medical applications, like the potential for rapid healing, cures for chronic illnesses, or revitalizing neural pathways in the elderly. Others, more clandestinely, began theorizing about militarization. Despite Director Orlon's cautionary stance, there were factions eager to harness any advantage. Aranda found herself the center of intense scrutiny. Her every meal, rest cycle, and biological reading became data points in a grand experiment she'd never truly signed up for. Whenever she needed respite, she slipped away to meet Layton in less trafficked corridors or out-of-the-way observation decks, where they could speak without constant monitoring. "It feels like my life isn't mine anymore," she confided, arms wrapped around her torso. The soft pulses of luminescence in her skin flickered with her emotions. "Is this what I have to endure if the entire galaxy thinks I hold the secret to super regeneration?" Layton cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing her cheeks. "Maybe we can set some boundaries. Director Orlon is sympathetic. We could request private time, volunteer certain information, but with limits." She nodded, leaning into his touch as if drawing strength from his warmth. "I'm just grateful I'm not going through this alone." During one of their rare quiet moments, they stood at a vantage point overlooking rows of newly arrived equipment containers. It was rumored that some of these held specialized apparatus to synthesize human enzymes. Layton ran a hand down the length of Aranda's arm, noticing how the slightest contact made her skin glow brighter. "Does that ever feel overwhelming?" he asked softly. "That I affect you this much?" She turned to him, capturing his gaze. "It's strangely comforting. I can sense your presence even before you touch me, like my body is resonating with yours. It's intimate in a way I never thought possible." Her voice caught. "But it also scares me. What if the more we connect, the more the outpost sees me as less of a person and more of a resource?" Layton felt a protective surge. For all his training and mechanical genius, he didn't have a quick fix for the moral quagmire. "Then I'll do everything I can to ensure they never treat you that way." She offered a faint, grateful smile, but sadness lingered in her eyes. "You might have to convince more than just the outpost. Director Orlin gets pressure from the Kett Defense Council. The Earth officials want to prove that the Alliance can produce tangible benefits for both sides. Everyone's desperate for results." As if on cue, a discreet beep sounded from a wall console. Aranda moved to answer it, revealing Dersevic's face on a small screen. He looked anxious. "Coordinator Volin, Specialist Ferris, the director requests your immediate presence in Conference Room 5. Something about a crucial new development." A weight sank in Layton's stomach. New development rarely meant good news in a place so rife with half-hidden agendas. Sharing a resigning nod, they headed off to discover what fresh challenge awaited them. Conference Room 5 was smaller than the main chambers, designed for more private discussions. Seated at a sleek, curved table were Director Orlin, several Kett scientists Layton recognized, and a pair of human officials from Earth's Interstellar Relations Bureau. Holographic projectors hummed in the corners, displaying rotating models of cells and molecules. Aranda and Layton took chairs at the front, feeling the weight of multiple gazes settled upon them. Director Orlin wasted no time. "We've gathered to assess an urgent matter. Our science division recently discovered that your interactions, Coordinator Volin and Specialist Ferris, have progressed the symbiotic effects faster than anticipated. Aranda's cellular and neural changes are spreading, almost like a chain reaction. This suggests that further contact may amplify the transformation, potentially granting abilities beyond regeneration. Early data points to empathic resonance." A hush fell over the room. Aranda's eyes went wide. "Empathic resonance? Are you suggesting I could begin sharing or sensing emotions from others?" Dr. Savick chimed in. "Precisely. We picked up unusual readings during your last medical scan. Certain brainwave patterns aligned more closely with Specialist Ferris's. The phenomenon indicates that each subsequent intimate exchange strengthens a shared neural field between you two." One of the Earth officials leaned forward, wearing an expression of polite skepticism. "Forgive me if this sounds too speculative, but do you have any empirical proof?" Savick brought up a hologram of overlapping EEG-like charts. "These are from separate scans of Coordinator Volin and Specialist Ferris. Notice the matching spikes here and here. The synchronization occurs most strongly immediately after close contact. If left uninterrupted, we theorize it could reach a point where they might sense each other's mental states. True empathic synergy. Aranda pressed a hand to her chest. I did notice a deeper awareness of Layton's presence, but I thought it was just my heightened senses. Layton felt an uneasy mix of awe and concern. On one hand, bridging species through empathy sounded like a miracle of cosmic proportions. On the other, he knew all too well how swiftly such gifts could be exploited. A flash of memory crossed his mind, advanced Black Ops programs on Earth that experimented with psychic links. None had ended well. Director Orlin, ever calm, turned to them. We need your cooperation in further testing. This empathic aspect, if verified, could reshape human-Kett relations. Imagine ambassadors who can literally feel each other's intent, forging treaties with unprecedented trust. Alternatively, imagine militaries harnessing it to read an enemy's moves in advance. He exhaled, a note of weariness in his voice. We must choose our path carefully. A tumult of voices arose. Some Kett scientists advocated immediate, expanded research protocols, round-the-clock monitoring, repeated intimate exchanges to measure progressive synergy. The Earth officials expressed caution, noting how potent such an ability could be if misused by unscrupulous factions. Aranda stood, her indigo skin shimmering with subtle flickers of light. I need to say something, she began, voice clear yet trembling. I didn't ask for my personal life to become a laboratory subject. I see the potential benefits, yes, but I'm also a living being, not a test tube. She glanced at Layton, drawing steadiness from his presence. We will cooperate voluntarily, but we insist on maintaining our autonomy and privacy. An appreciative murmur spread across the room. Director Orlin regarded her with thoughtful respect. Your wishes will be respected. We can set parameters, strict protocols for data collection that ensure consent. No intrusive demands. One of the Earth officials, a woman with a kind but shrewd gaze, nodded. Let's formalize that. We can limit the research scope to mutually agreed times and tasks and minimal invasiveness. Layton realized the significance of the moment. Together, he and Aranda were forging a path between personal freedom and groundbreaking scientific discovery. The entire outpost, perhaps the entire galaxy, seemed to hinge on what they chose next. He reached for Aranda's hand, letting his eyes skim her glowing features. We'll find a way forward, he said, not sure if he was speaking more to her or the others. But her gentle squeeze of his fingers told him that, for now, they were in this together. Back in the bustling outpost, Layton and Aranda found themselves at the forefront of heated negotiations. Earth's ambassadors and Kett officials debated ethical guidelines around their empathic connection, each side torn between excitement and fear. Darcevic proposed a secure research protocol that would measure the bond under careful observation. No invasive procedures, but enough scientific rigor to satisfy both governments. Despite the microscope on their lives, Layton and Aranda stole rare moments of privacy in the lush arboretum. There, surrounded by softly glowing flora, they confessed hopes and worries in whispers that echoed with heartbeats. Every time their hands touched, Aranda's luminescence shimmered, hinting at the remarkable unity bridging two distant species. But with so many eyes upon them, the question loomed. Could their powerful new link remain a tender bond of affection? Or would political ambition warp it into something they could no longer control?